Hey everybody, we are live. Welcome to another edition of Boston Straight Shooters. I'm your host for this evening, Steve, aka Negative Ned. Frank is away again on business, so we'll do our best to hold down the fort for him while he's gone. This is the show where we talk about the Patriots, the Bruins, the Celtics, and the Red Sox. Uh, I'm going to try and post a link here so you guys can join the show. So bear with me as I try and do this. A technically challenged host over here. Let's see, there's that and this. And all right, I think we're good to go. That's probably actually the fastest I've ever done it. All right, let's get started. We are going to start with, unfortunately, we're going to start with the Red Sox losing in the wild card to the Yankees. Started off promising with them in game one, with Garrett Crochet on the mound, with them winning 3-1. He was really lights out in that game. He 7 2/3 innings, 4 hits, 1 run, no walks, 11 strikeouts, 117 pitches. He was huge for them, which is exactly what you need your ace to be. And I'm happy that a lot of the talk about him wearing down near the end of the season, in September and so forth, because the most innings he ever pitched, he went over 200 innings, and he wasn't going to be able to hold up, and this and that nonsense. He put a lot of that to rest, and he proved that he's going to be able to withstand a long grind and also produce in the playoffs. I admit early on in the second inning, I think it was, he gave up a home run. And I was like, oh, geez, here we go. We're starting already. But he kind of corrected himself there and righted the ship and started mowing them down. I want to say at one point in the game, he mowed down like 16 of them in a row. 16 Yankees in a row went down. And, they really needed him to step up because on the opposite side, the Yankees had their ace going, Max Fried, who won 19 games this year. Both him and Crochet and Tariq Skubal from Detroit, those are probably the top 3 guys for the Cy Young Award, in my opinion. If you had to look at it, those 3 guys are at the top of the list. And so Max Fried, shut the Red Sox down for 6 1/3 innings until they pulled him out after 102 pitches. He gave up 4 hits, no runs. Excuse me. So, going into the 7th inning, they were ahead. Sorry, that's my goofball cat. The team mascot's getting rambunctious on me here, and I can't let him mess up my stuff over here. So that's it for you, kitty. Sorry about that. So, they couldn't do anything off Max Fried. Luckily, when the bullpen came in, the Red Sox were able to get to them. They took advantage, in the top of the 7th with 1 out. Raphael walked. Soga doubled. Raphael scored all the way from first. And then Masataka Yoshida drove him in, give the Sox the 2-1 lead. And, then Crochet came out. He got 2 outs, and then they took him out and brought in Chapman to get the last 4 outs. And usually when that happens, it's a recipe for disaster. So not too thrilled with having to use him there. I really thought they would have used Whitlock to get that last out in the 8th and then bring in Chapman with a clean inning. But for whatever reason, Cora didn't do it. I don't know if it's a numbers matchup type deal, with all the analytics and whatnot. Whoever was coming up, I don't remember who was coming up, but maybe Whitlock didn't have good numbers against them, and so they went with Chapman. He got the out, and then of course, typical Boston around here. They can't make it easy. Chapman had to go ahead and load the bases and give everybody heart failure around here. But he did end up getting out of it, luckily, and shut the door on them. And they got the 3-1 win. So, real good win for them. Because if they don't win game 1, they got no shot in game 2, in my opinion. I didn't have any faith that they were going to win game 2, regardless whether they won game 1 or not. So, that game they played, game 1, those are the kind of games you have to win with your ace on the mound. And too many times, not too many times this year, luckily, but too many times the ace goes out and gives you 7 2/3, and then bullpen will come in and blow it up on them, like the Yankees bullpen did. And so it's refreshing to see that they actually pulled it off. Excuse me. So, good win. You feel. I honestly didn't feel good going into game 2 because Brian Bale was pitching. It's unfortunate. Excuse me. It's unfortunate that Lucas Giolito got hurt right before the playoffs started. He would have been in there yesterday. Not yesterday, Wednesday in game 2 instead of Bale. And of course, Bale didn't disappoint me. He only lasted 2 1/3 innings. Gave up a home run in the bottom of the first, 2-run homer. Par for the course with this guy. He's been pitching like crap for the whole month of September. No, he pitched good in June, July, and August, but September was a really bad month for him. His ERA was over 5, I believe, for the month. Just not solid, not consistent at all. I don't know what his deal is. I don't know if it was the workload. He pitched over 100-something innings last year, so that shouldn't have been the issue. But whatever the issue is, he's definitely not number 2 material. Number 3, maybe. 4, or for sure. But people were saying, "Oh, well, he beat the Yankees, earlier in the year. He pitched 7 shutout innings." But yeah, but that was in June. And as I tell everybody, later on in the year when it counts, the Red Sox play the Yankees. They usually don't fare too well. They always beat up on them early, and then late August, September, they almost never pull it off. So, he got himself in trouble. He got himself in trouble, gave up the 2-run homer, but Trevor Story came through in the top of the second and drove in 2 runs. He drove in Rafael and Duran. But then, subsequently in the bottom of the second, Bayo gave up a single to Judge. Korosinoff pulled him out. And that's a killer. I mean, you only get 2 1/3 innings out of the guy. It's a killer to have to go to the bullpen that early. And it taxes him, and they ended up using, I don't know, 3 or 4, probably 4 or 5 relievers. I forget how many exactly, but, Justin Slayton came in. He's been pretty much garbage since he came back from the injured list. Gave up a run in the 5th inning, gave up the lead, made it 3-2. Yankees. Then, top of the 6th, Trevor Story, the one-man wrecking crew, hit a home run in the top of the 6th, tied up at 3. But they couldn't hold the lead. They brought in Garrett Whitlock. They used him for 1 2/3 innings. He threw 47 pitches. I feel that they overused him, and that's because they didn't have anybody else, and they didn't. My thought is that where Chapman pitched the extra third of an inning the night before and had to get the 4 outs, they didn't want to use him last night in a tie game and try to save him for last night if you had the lead, which kind of makes sense. But I think that having Whitlock in there as long as they did, and not that he hasn't gone 2 innings before or couldn't do it, but I just think that in that situation, he starts getting up to, I think anything over like 30 or 35 pitches, you start talking 40, 47, whatever, 50 for a guy pitching 2 innings. I mean, that's bad. 20-something pitches in an inning. It's not good. And, I think they overused him, and he ended up giving up. The go-ahead run. In the game earlier also, not to mention, Jaron Duran had a chance to, he dove for a fly ball, hit the heel of his glove, and he didn't make the catch. And I want to say that led to one of the runs. I think the go-ahead run, 3-2. So, the defense rearing its ugly head again. I mean, they have like one good game and then like 2 bad games where they're making errors. He wasn't charged with an error, but he probably should have been, because he should have had that ball. And later on in the game, in the top of the 7th, they had Nate Eaton on second base, and Yoshida hit a ball to Jazz Chisholm at second base. He dove, got up quickly, turned and rifled it to first, and they had a shot to send Eaton home, and the third base coach held him up. And then they had, first and third, they couldn't capitalize, and they got no runs out of it. So, that's a case where 99% of the time I would be like, no, don't send him, because there's 2 outs. But in that particular case, he's fast enough that he probably would have scored, or at least made it close. My argument for not sending them is when they used to freaking send David Ortiz whipping around there, with the wave him around Wendell back in the day. And they would always send all the freaking slow guys and drive me ape crazy when the guy would get thrown up by, 10 miles. Like, this is a case where you have a guy with speed. Him and Duran and Hamilton are probably the 3 fastest guys, and Raphael, I mean, he's one of the top fastest guys on the team, and he's rounding third base. You get a chance to send him and maybe get a run, and you don't do it. I think that's a mistake, costly mistake, and it's unfortunate that it came to that. So, listen, I feel like watching those kind of games just reminds me of the 70s and 80s, and even the 90s and early 2000s when they couldn't pull it off and they would lose in the Bronx. So it's just the way it feels, And then last night, so now the series is tied going into last night, and you don't have anybody with Giolito being out and all the other injuries they had. You got rookie Connolly early. That poor bum gets the start in the Bronx. His first road start, I think it's only his third start period, and he's got to go face a lineup that has 7 guys with 20-plus homers in it. Lots of Ruck Scooby-Doo. That poor guy did pretty good for the first 3 innings, but then he kind of unraveled in the 4th. There was an error that was made. I forget who made it, but once that starts, then the floodgates kind of opened, and he gave up 4 runs, 3 earned, 3 2/3 innings. They had to pull him out, and it's unfortunate. And the guy that he went up against is Walpole, Mass native rookie Cam Schlittler, called up in July with the Yankees. I knew when he threw the first pitch and it was 100 miles an hour and it was a strike that the Red Sox are going to be in for a long night. That guy's a moose, 6'6", 210, throws gas. He threw 100 plus, I don't know how many times, most of the night. Threw 8 shutout innings, gave up 5 hits, struck out 12, no walks. Every one of the Sox lineup struck out at least once, except for Trevor Story. So, and you know what? It wasn't just the heat that he was getting them on. They were swinging the pitches down in the dirt, low and away. I mean, they were all over the place. The Red Sox. This is one of those games where I feel like they try to hit home runs, and they don't do the small ball stuff that they did in game. The game they won first game, when they expand the strike zone and their swings get large. They got no shot against a guy like this. And most of the guys that they face that are like that, they have no shot. They don't do good against those kind of guys, especially when you don't have power hitters in your lineup. You got Bregman, Story, and Abreu as your power guys. Abreu didn't look the same since he came back from injury. I think really struggled. The lineup. Listen, I'm going to get to the lineup in a second, but I would have to say that given the hodgepodge of guys and the Ocean State job lot bums, as I call them, I'm surprised they finished where they did. I'm surprised they finished second in the American League in runs scored, number one. Number two, I'm surprised they finished third in their division. I'm surprised they made the wild card. But they finished second in the American League in runs scored, but they had quite a few games where they would get like 8 runs, 10 runs, 12 runs. And they also had a bunch of games where they would get like 1 or 2 runs and lose. So I feel like those numbers are skewed. They lost too many close games because they didn't have the horses to get over the hump. So, I think that the lineup, you got Yoshida hitting cleanup in the playoffs. I mean, that's terrible. And I'm not bashing him because he's one of the only guys hitting. He went 4 for 7 in the 3 games in New York. Drove in 2 runs in the first game. He hit 333 for the month of September when he came back. Again, no power, but at least he was getting hits. But he shouldn't be your cleanup hitter. He should be near the top of the lineup. He should be first or second. Guy getting on base. The only reason he was hitting there is because he was actually getting hits with guys on. So, I guess, the thing is, Alex Cora's hands are tied. What do you want him to do? He didn't have a choice but to put him there. But you don't have, there's no David Ortiz in the lineup. There's no Manny Ramirez. There's no thump in there. And that hurts. And they keep building this roster with these fringe, triple A, quadruple A, Ocean State job lot guys, as I'm going to keep calling them that, because that's what they are. They're not, they're in the major leagues, but they don't belong. And the part that's really aggravating me, the way Breslow's building the team, and Hein Bloom was doing the same thing. They want, roster flexibility. When they traded Rafi Devers, that was one of the first things they said. So they want to be able to take a guy like Romy Gonzalez and put him at second base and first base and move him up and down the lineup. He's a fringe player. They need more stability than that. You look at Nate Eaton, Nick Sogard, Romy Gonzalez, Rob Refsnyder, David Hamilton. These guys are they're fringe guys. They shouldn't be the meat of your lineup. So I kind of blame Craig Breslow for putting out there, a lineup that's not as good as it should be, or as good as they could make it, because they don't want to spend money. And we're going to have a lot of time to talk about more of the roster and so forth. When the hot stove kicks off and, the free agent period starts. But, their depth the pitching staff was a flipping mess. You didn't have, imagine if they Imagine if they traded for Joe Ryan at the trade deadline. You had him number 2 going into New York against Carlos Rodon 2 nights ago. Maybe they win game 2 with another starter. Another 1A guy. Never mind. The guys they lost. Tanner Houck, Carter Crawford, Liam Hendricks, Hunter Dobbins, Patrick Sandoval, Jordan Hicks, Dustin May, Richard Fitz, and Lucas Giolito right before the playoffs. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's like 10 guys. And also, in addition to that, they released Walker Buehler, who was not really doing anything for them. Couldn't get to the 5th inning in most of the starts, and they released him. And of course, he goes to the Philadelphia Phillies, and he's 3-0, and he's pitched 13 2/3 innings, and he's given up 1 run. His ERA is 0.66. So, I think that something just wasn't jiving here. I don't know if it's the pitching coach with the backwards pitching stuff that they tried on these guys, but it didn't work. And that's a guy I wanted. I wanted them to get him instead of Nick Pivetta and re-sign Nick Pivetta. I didn't want Nick Pivetta. I already had 4 years of that guy or whatever at 11 wins and a 4.5, 4.6 ERA. I didn't want that. I wanted Walker Buehler, and I wanted him to work out. Unfortunately, it didn't, and that's too bad because they could have used him. If he had gotten turned around, got himself right, they could have used him in game 2. A guy that's playoff tested, got World Series in his back pocket. That's a guy they could have used instead of Bayo in game 2, in my opinion. So, the trade deadline, they got Dustin May. Didn't pan out, got hurt. Lucas Giolito, elbow problem right before the playoffs. Not a good sign. Reclamation guy. I don't know what his contract status is for next year, but I wouldn't keep him. I know he had some kind of clause that would kick in if he pitched 150 innings. He couldn't get it. Patrick Sandoval, there's another guy they paid big bucks to sit out this year in the hopes that he'll come back next year. I mean, they got to stop with the reclamation project nonsense. Liam Hendricks, he's another guy. They gave him $10 million for 2 years, $5 million a year. He pitched like crap this year, complained, then got hurt, missed the rest of the year. You got to stop it with this. You got to stop with this stuff. And what's incredible, here's what's even more incredible with the Flotsam and Jetsam pitching staff that these guys had. They were in the top 5, I want to say, in bullpen ERA. I am floored by that, considering all these guys that they've brought in and out of here. The Zach Kellys. I'm sick of seeing that guy. He coughs it up. Wiesert, he's another guy. He had an overall decent year, but he was coughing it up at the wrong time. So he blew 9 saves this year, most in the league. Like, how about no? Get another more reliable guy. So I'm a little frustrated that they couldn't go any further. But given what they've been, and we've been talking about this too, you have Alex Cora trying to make filet mignon out of chicken salad. I think he got the best. He maximized. He got the most out of what he had. He maximized and got the most out of that roster. And we've been hopping on this for 3 years now, me and Frank, about how good of a manager Alex Cora is and how he's getting the most out of what he's been given. And it's really up to the front office and management now to step up. And again, this is why last week I was like, I want them to make the playoffs, but I kind of don't want them to make the playoffs because now they made it and they made the wild card and they're like, pat themselves on the back. Yep, we made it. Our system works. All these, Flotsam and Jetsam bums, worked for us. And so Alex Cora here, you're going to get more chicken salad next year. I don't want that. I don't want more chicken salad again. Will you please give this guy a couple more weapons to work with? Give him a little more ammunition. I know Roman Anthony was out, and he was a big loss at the top of the lineup. But they need a thumper. Tristan Casas can't stay healthy enough to be that guy at first base. And now they probably can't unload him. So they have to wait for him to come back and see what he can do and deal with his garbage. I don't know. I would almost keep Nathaniel Lowe and get, 20 homers and 80 RBI out of him and can Casas, trade him for a bag of balls. So I'm not going to listen to him. The guy's got a good glove at first base. He might hit 220, but I don't care. Casas is hitting 0 because he's not out there. So I know I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit with the lineup and the roster and so forth, but it's just equally infuriating. And Alex Cora, to his credit, had the end of season press conference or whatever he had last night, and said, "Oh, we're getting better, we're going to improve, blah blah." He's drinking the Kool-Aid, but I honestly think that he's not 100% on board with all the analytics and all the, the swinging from your ass, going for the home runs and striking out, 15 times a game. They've had less of them in the last month or two, but they have too many of those all year long where they were striking out, 10, 12, 14 times in a game and losing the games. That's a recipe for disaster. If you're not going to get home run, you need home run hitters to be doing that. That lineup is not littered with home run hitters that are going to strike out like that. They don't have Aaron Judge and Joe Stanton and a bunch of the other guys. They're hitting home runs up the wazoo. They're not built that way. They're built to play small ball. You can't. The philosophy that they were using, where they were playing small ball and winning and scoring runs, they have to use that. And I don't care what the front office says or the analytics or whatever, but you got to let the manager be the manager. This is my frustration with all that stuff. I feel like they're dictating to the manager how the game should go, and they're not letting the managers use the eyeball test. And I don't like that. I don't think that that's the right way to go. So listen, we're back to better luck next year, right? And I will do this now. Actually, you know what? I'll save it. I have the long range predictions that Frank and I made back in March for the Red Sox, and I will save those for the weekly predictions we do at the end, just to see how we did. So with that being said, we're going to move on to the Patriots. The Patriots finally had a good game where they finally smoked another team as they should. They beat the Carolina Panthers 42-13, which I definitely didn't see coming. And I want to say somewhere along the line I heard that it's the first time that the Patriots have scored more than 30 points in a game since 2022. That is putrid. They have been such a mess for so long. Excuse me. So absolutely refreshing to see them get on the good side of an ass whooping. I don't like the way the game started. Again, they deferred the toss. Carolina went down the opening drive, scored a touchdown. They go up 6-0. The kicker missed the extra point, doinked it off the upright. So it's 6-0, and I'm thinking right off the bat, and I get, and of course, no, Frank's not here, and weekly prediction thing or yearly prediction. Listen, me and Frank been going back and forth for months, since April, pretty much, about how many games the Patriots were going to win. And Frank has had them at between 10 and 12 or around 12, and look at the schedule, and they're going to have it easy and blah, blah. And I've been saying 8-9 wins all along. And the first thing he sends me in big, bold letters is they suck after they gave up the opening drive touchdown. And I was pissing myself getting that from him. So I think, I think he's realizing that maybe that win total is not as realistic as he might have thought. But that being said, I don't think they should be allowed to defer the coin toss anymore. I mean, they defer the coin toss to give up a touchdown. It's like, if you're going to do that, then just put the 7 on the board and then get the ball back and then try and do something with it. I mean, that's infuriating. You're not good enough to defer. We don't have Tom Brady here to orchestrate a late drive in the first half and put points on the board and then get the ball back and then put more points on the board. You're not there. You're not even close. You win the toss. Get the effing ball. Go on an opening drive. Try to get a touchdown. Try to play with lead for once. I'm sick of seeing these guys play from behind. Guys, listen, I know I'm getting wound up, but, it's frustrating when they're falling behind. They can't afford to. They're not good enough typically to play from behind. They're lucky they were playing a team that's much worse than them. And I do think Carolina is much worse than them. I think Drake May is way better than Bryce Young. Bryce Young, he's a backup at best, But, I don't really blame him. I blame the situation. I blame the fact that, they're a bad team. They've been, rebuilding, and he got put in a bad spot, and it's not really his fault. So, I don't know. I just, I think Drake May is just better overall anyway. But, you go down 6-0, whatever, to a team you shouldn't. And I don't know what it is with the Patriots defense on the opening drives, but they can't stop, you can't stop a cold. You can't stop a nosebleed. So that's something that has to get fixed, because there's going to be some teams along the way that win the opening coin toss, and they're going to take the ball. And I wouldn't be surprised if Buffalo did it this week, win the toss, get the opening kickoff, run it right down. You know what I mean? You got to find a way to stop them. Defense has to find a way to get stops early in the game. They got to figure that out. That's definitely been a weakness, a bugaboo, whatever you want to call it. They're letting guys get open for 20 yards a crack. You can't be doing that. So I want to see that cleaned up. And I probably should have got to the top 3 takeaways from the Carolina game. Well, number one, the opening drive TDs are pissing me off. So I actually am getting to the keys here. The top 3 takeaways. The opening drive touchdowns are pissing me off. That's one. That's not right. I said the offense left too many opportunities on the table. I don't think that's the case. That was from last week, I think. I think the offense was better this week, which is what I really meant to say. The offense looked better. They ran effectively. Drake May was efficient. They took advantage of bad defense. They put points on the board. Drake May 2 touchdowns passing and 1 running. They ran for 2 touchdowns. Gibson ran for a touchdown. Trevion Henderson ran for a touchdown. So look, they got good play. They got good offensive line play. The offensive line, for all the talk early on in the year about, Will Campbell with the alligator arms nonsense. I think the offensive line did a pretty good job this past week against Carolina. And not perfect, not that there was no penalties, but listen, they've been playing better than what they would have been given credit for earlier in the year. And that was without rookie starting left guard Jared Wilson. Ben Brown took his place. So look, encouraging W. And the last takeaway is Marcus Jones was awesome. 167 total punt return yards on 3 punts. He returned 1 for an 87-yard touchdown. That was huge for the Patriots when, their first drive stalled out. They kicked the ball back to Carolina. The defense stopped him to get the punt. He takes it back, puts him on the board. That's huge. That was a huge lift. And, he's really done a good job in that area. And they're going to need that every week. So hopefully he won't get hurt. But, you know, he ended up getting Special Teams Player of the Week. So kudos to him, and good job by the special teams, blocking for him. So listen, the special teams had a decent game, and kudos to them. So, they're going to need that going forward. I know that for 20 years we heard Belichick hop on all three phases of the game. That's big. You can't have stupid penalties in the special teams game, and so hopefully they can keep it cleaned up and not have huge mistakes, because that's not gonna work. So another key for the Patriots in that game: no turnovers. No interceptions, no fumbles. Good to see, because I said it last week. First guy that fumbles, you bench the rest of the game. That's what they should do. There has to be a message sent that it's not going to be tolerated. So they did a good job. Again, I think Drake May has settled in. I think he's really starting to take command of the offense. Steph Diggs had a good game. 6 catches over 100 yards. He's getting more involved in the offense. And listen, Pop Douglas, who had a crappy game in the last game, didn't show up on the score sheet, but did a good job in blocking. And so, sometimes, I know everybody gets caught up with the stats. Everybody does. The wide receivers do. The fans do. We do. We look at Pop Douglas, we're like, no catches. Geez, he didn't do anything. But I give Mike Vrabel and coaching staff credit for giving him credit for being like, hey, yeah, he didn't have any catches, but he did his job, blocking in the pass game and the run game. So look, that's important. You have to have wide receivers that can block. I do still wish the Patriots had Kendrick Bourne. We'll get to that in a minute. But he was really good blocking. You need those guys to block. Edelman blocked good. Historically, the wide receivers have to be able to block. And, so I'll give him lots of credit for, the old mantra, do your job. He did his job. His job might not have been to catch the ball, but his job was blocking. He did a good job. So, look, the offense looked a lot better. Less 3 and outs. No, 3-4 times in a row, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. Those are killers. And so I really think that, Drake May is doing a good job hitting the open guy. That pass he made to Hunter Henry while running to his left and just flipped it right. I mean, those are huge plays. Those are plays that Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes make regularly. And again, we're not going to compare him. We're not comparing Drake May to those guys yet. I know there's a lot of, he looks like Josh Allen stuff going around. I'm not going to go there yet. But he looked better. The offense looked better. And that's more of what we want to see. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of that. Listen, getting up 28-6 in the first half. I can't remember the last time they went into a half with a lead that big. It's been quite a while and refreshing, to see. I think the defense did a real good job of shutting Carolina down up until one of the last drives they had when they put the touchdown on the board to make it 13. They were forcing Bryce Young to make some bad throws. They were getting after it in the run game. Milton Williams, getting him was huge. Again, you look at the stat sheet, one tackle, right? No sacks, whatever. But, him and Christian Barmore combined in the middle there, they're going to make it tough for a lot of teams. Christian Barmore actually, and also having Christian Gonzalez back, what a difference he makes. in the secondary. Getting him back is huge. I'm kind of glad they waited to bring him back. We've been talking about this. You can't rush him back last week against Pittsburgh, and he gets hurt, and then he's out for another 6 weeks or whatever. And you're going to start playing Buffalo, and some of the other teams you got to beat. So, listen, real good to have him back. But Christian Barmore was Pro Football Focus's best interior defensive lineman with an 85.9 rating. And that's for a guy that had no numbers, no sacks, no tackles, no forced fumbles, no nothing. But that just goes to show, again, that you can do a good job, and you don't have to fill up the score sheet with a bunch of numbers in order to do it. And so, it's definitely good having him back. They definitely missed him last year when he was out with the blood clots. And listen, I know he had the issue where he got pulled over or whatever. We're not gonna hop on that. So look, I'm glad they kept him around with good reason. He's a good player. And listen, this team's been bereft of talent for a while, and you just can't let guys like that go. Some things are going to happen. People deserve a second chance. I'm glad they gave it to him. And, he's proven his worth big time. I'm excited to see more of what Milton Williams and Christian Barmore can do. And the other thing that was key to the Patriots winning is they actually got pressure on Bryce Young with 4 guys rushing. Didn't have to blitz 7 guys a lot. So, other teams do it to us. They send 4 guys, and that's the end of it, right? There should be no reason why the Patriots can't do that. And if they can do more of that and get good play from the linebackers, that's going to be key. Robert Spillane finally had a good game. He had 10 tackles. He was all over the place, making stops in the run game too. Exactly what you signed him for. I think the secondary overall had a pretty good game. Again, having Christian Gonzalez back definitely helps. There's no getting around, how important he is. And that allows the guys up front to get after the quarterback. So, again, we talk about continuity with the offensive line. We've talked about it a lot, but the whole defense, all 11 guys have to be cohesive and have to have continuity. And when you have guys shutting down, the wide receivers the way Christian Gonzalez and even Carlton Davis to an extent, if you can have those 2 guys healthy back there, shutting things down, you got a chance to win a lot of football games. And so, look, I'm not going to go crazy and be like, oh, they're going to get 10, 12 wins, but it's encouraging. They made stops when they needed to and forced the Panthers into some bad decisions. And so, we want to see what they can do. I mean, they have to be able to keep it rolling. I'm hoping that they can do something against Buffalo this week. This is another good test for them. This is a game. This is a real test. I mean, the Pittsburgh game was kind of a test. It's a game they should have won. But this game here is like, okay, can we hang with the big boys? It's a primetime game, Sunday night game. This is where, you're in the spotlight, and they don't have a lot of these. I want to say they only have 3. So listen, we used to get a little frustrated when, the Patriots would have like 4 or 6 primetime games, Thursday night, Sunday night, Thursday night, Monday night, whatever. And, everybody's got to try and stay up, but this is good for them. And I have a feeling that because, and I say this a lot now, I think that because, I think they're going to hang in there, in the first half. It'll be close because my theory is that in the primetime games, they don't want blowouts. The NFL doesn't want blowouts because they don't want people changing the channel. They want people to tune in. The Thursday night, Sunday night, Monday night games very rarely have blowouts. And when I say blowout, I mean 10 points or more. Earlier, Buffalo played Miami on Thursday night, and it was a 10-point win, but it was a 7-point game until like 4 minutes left. And Buffalo kicked a field goal to give himself a little bit of distance. So, that's why I say, the Patriots, listen, they should be able to, Buffalo's defense is not great. Buffalo struggled at home last week against New Orleans. I watched some of that game a little bit. New Orleans was getting after Josh Allen. New Orleans was putting pressure on them. New Orleans made it tough. For a team that's you're supposed to walk all over them. Buffalo didn't, destroy them like they should have. So I think Buffalo can be had. I think the issues are that you got Josh Allen, who's arguably, one of the top two guys now between him, Lamar Jackson. If you wanted to make a case for Patrick Mahomes still being Patrick Mahomes, top three, those three guys, he's in elite status now. And this is just like when the Patriots had Tom Brady. When you have the best guy, it's really difficult to knock him off. And so I kind of hope the Patriots can do something, the guy's name is escaping me. Cooks, the running back for Buffalo. Really, really good. He needs to be stopped. You got to pick your poison. You're either going to stop Josh Allen or you're going to stop Cooks. You ain't going to stop them both. So it's going to be really tough. But Buffalo's defense is not as good as it was a few years ago. They've got cracks. They're giving up, 100-yard rushes. Patriots need to be able to ground and pound, run the ball, chew up clock. Don't give it. This is the same. This is the same argument forever now. And if you look more, the running game is becoming more important again. It got to be a little bit like Madden, video game football with the high flying offense, 400 yards passing, and 40 to 30 scores every week. But more teams are running the ball more effectively, and they're not doing it just with one guy, which is the old school way where you had the one guy that would get the ball 25 times. But it's like death by 1,000 paper cuts. You got like 1-2 punch guys now. Teams are using more. The Patriots have it, with Stevenson, Gibson, and Henderson. Other teams have, one or two guys. You're going to mix it up. You got a guy that's a kind of a thumper, and then you have a change of pace guy, and they run the ball. And teams are trying to be more balanced. Everybody knows that when you're too one-dimensional, if you're passing the ball 40 to 50 times in a game, the likelihood of you guys winning those games is slim. So teams are running the ball more, and they're getting more balanced offense. The Patriots ran the ball 29 times last week and only passed it 17. Whereas a few weeks ago, Drake May passed the ball 43 or 46 times, and the Patriots ran it like 18 and only ran it like twice in the second half. Like, if you're going to become one-dimensional, you're going to have a hard time. So my thing for the Patriots, though, is for them, when the Patriots would play the Colts and it was Brady against Peyton Manning, what were the Patriots trying to do? Run the football, keep it out of Peyton Manning's hands. Don't give it back to him because, as soon as you get it back, quick, right down the field, score. And, the defense is getting killed and they're tired. And so I kind of want the Patriots to do that this week. I want them to run the ball and pound it down their throat and chew up the clock, and don't let Josh Allen do anything. Don't leave him on the sideline if you can. So it's a I think it's doable, but they got to execute and they got to make it work, right? So that's my That's one of my things that they have to do this week. They have to be able to figure out how to run the ball. And I'm not talking about I'm not talking about how they did it a few years ago with Belichick and Mac Jones, where they ran the ball, like 60 times and threw it 3 times and won 14-3 or whatever in the cold. Because that isn't going to work. But you gotta minimize the damage and run the ball effectively. You're gonna have to run it 25 to 30 times minimum, and chew up clock and get first downs, and be efficient in the pass game. There's no reason why you can't go, 15 for 20, 200 something yards, a couple touchdowns. I mean, Drake May should be able to do that. And again, he can't turn the ball over. He can't have 2 interceptions and a pick and a fumble. No more of that, or they won't win. The turnovers will kill them, and they need to win the turnover battle. So there's obviously the same keys every week: run the ball effectively, don't turn the ball over, and no penalties. Limit the penalties. Last week, 7 penalties, 54 yards. That number needs to be like 3 or 4 a week, not 7, 8, 9, whatever. Not good enough. So, they can't. They can't. They can't afford the mistakes. All right. I do want to get to a little bit of Bruins news first, so let's move on to them briefly before we get into the poll questions. The Bruins exhibition season is coming to an end. Tomorrow is their last game. This past week, they played 3 games. Last Saturday, they played Philly. They beat them 4-3. Then they lost to them in the shootout. I think it was Monday, 3-2. And last night they actually won 3-1. I'm shocked. I was watching a little bit of that game before the Red Sox game started. The Bruins early in that game carried the play. They were out shooting and out chancing the Capitals, and all of a sudden a switch flipped, and the Capitals were getting all the chances, and they went up 1-0. And I was like, "Oh, here we go again." Now, granted, a lot of the scrubs played. I mean, if you look at that line, it looked like Providence. So, I got to take it kind of with a grain of salt. You had all the scrubs out there, and you had Korpisalo, the backup, playing in net. And he looked sharp. He looked pretty good. Now, I didn't get to see the rest of the game because I put the Red Sox game on. But they came back and won the game, and Korpisalo stopped 33 out of 34 shots. So he gave up a goal in the first period, gave up nothing after that. But they got outshot again. They've been getting outshot a lot, and you can't give up 30-something shots a game, or it's going to be curtains. So, I don't know who's going to play Saturday. Tomorrow, they're playing tomorrow at 2 o'clock against the Rangers. I don't know who's playing. It's their last tune-up. I would imagine most of the regulars would play, because then they don't start until Wednesday. They're playing the Capitals, and then they have the next game after that at home against the Blackhawks. So they have back-to-back right off the bat. Coming out of the gate. So, it remains to be seen what they can do. Yours truly doesn't hold out a lot of hope. I'm already getting squawked at. I'm already getting squawked at for being too negative. But, I have to see otherwise in order to not feel that way. I really feel like it's a rebuilding year again. They have a lot of young guys. They're probably one of the youngest teams in the league. And again, the pieces all have to fit together. And so it's going to be, let's see what Marco Sturm can put together for the final roster, and what the lines are going to look like, and, who's going to do what, because, as I've been hopping on it, too many, fourth line guys on the roster, fighting for those spots. So, it remains to be seen. But listen, the Red Sox are done. You got the Patriots going on. You got the Bruins are starting up now. The Celtics should be starting soon. If they haven't already, I really haven't paid attention to them. So I'll have an update on them for next week. Because their season is going to start in October. So their preseason should be starting at least in a couple of weeks, I would imagine. Actually, I would imagine next week At least maybe. I'll have to do a little digging there, but it's going to start getting busy around here again in the fall, just the way we like it. And hopefully this week we'll get good results with the Patriots and Bruins getting their seasons, kicking off. And listen, I don't know how the roster is going to shake out, but I want to see scoring. Next week when we come on, we'll have the final roster, and we'll know what the lines are. So we'll have a recap of that. I'm not going to try to predict it because it's probably going to be wrong, like everything else I do around here. So I'm not going to do that. But they have one game left tomorrow afternoon, and we'll see what happens, and then we'll get things kicked off. All right, let's move on to the poll questions from last week. I believe we had two questions last week. Let me find them. All right, bear with me here. Where is it? Right here. Do you think the Red Sox will beat the Yankees in the wild card round? We had yes 84% and no 16%. As you could probably guess, I was in the 16%. No surprise there. But I'm surprised that many people really thought they were going to beat the Yankees. And so that just goes to show you the level of confidence that everybody had around here, really, because the Red Sox won 10 out of 14 games in the regular season against the Yankees. They really thought they could pull it off. But like I told you, August and September is a different animal for them. So, no. Number two, we had you. Who was your choice for MVP of the Red Sox this season? We had Garrett Crochet, 100%. Trevor Story, 0. Aroldis Chapman, 0. Alex Bregman, 0. I'm a little surprised by this because I really thought that Alex Bregman would get something. I thought Chapman would get something. Trevor Story, maybe not so much because he was actually healthy for the first time all year long, put up, good numbers, 25 homers, 96 RBI, 31 stolen bases. But to have Crochet 100%, again, just goes to show what happens when you have an ace pitcher, and we haven't had one of them in here for a while. So, it's not a no-brainer for me. I'm really surprised by that. So, I don't know. Let's move on to last week's predictions. I said the Patriots would win 24-13. I'm going to give myself half credit. I had the 13 right, and I had the two right numbers, 24, but they were flipped 42. So I'm going to give myself a half an ounce of credit for at least getting the score partially right. Again, it feels good to see them win a game like that. I said that Travion Henderson would finally get his first touchdown. He did. He ran in for a TD. So ding, ding, ding. That prediction's been on there for weeks. I needed to keep it there because I need to get one right somewhere along the line. I'm tired of getting them all wrong. Let's see. I said the Red Sox would lose 2 of the 3 wild card games. Ding, ding, ding. I was right about that. I didn't hold out a lot of hope that they would get that. Next is I said Stevenson would be benched to begin the game. They would go with Gibson. Wrong. They gave Stevenson the first carry of the game. Egg on my face. What else is new? I said that the next guy that fumbles is benched for the rest of the game. Wrong. Nobody fumbled, so didn't happen. So, no fumbles, so no right prediction there. Let's get to this week. Oh yeah, wait. Before we do this week's predictions, I'm going to give the long-range predictions that me and Frank had for the Red Sox back on March 26th of this year. And I said the Red Sox would win 88 games and miss the playoffs. Wrong. They got 89 wins, so I was close with the win total, but they actually did make the playoffs because the American League was so bad. So they snuck. They didn't sneak in, but they made it. Frank said the Red Sox will win 92 to 95 games and go on to win the World Series. Wrong. Not even close, Frank. Sorry about that. Better luck next year. That's a common Red Sox theme. Better luck next year. So that takes care of that. All right, now we'll move on to next week's predictions, which I have here. Let's see. I think the Patriots will force Josh Allen into 2 turnovers, whether that's an interception and a fumble, 2 fumbles, whatever it is. He fumbles a lot. He's got like 77 fumbles or something over whatever his career is. So, I mean, he fumbles a lot. He runs it a lot, but he fumbles a lot. So, I think somehow the Patriots are going to force, a couple turnovers over there. I say the Patriots keep it close in the second, at least in the first half. Excuse me. That's my thought on that. This is definitely going to be wild because I had this guy's bags packed 2 weeks ago. I think Stevenson gets over 100 yards this week on the ground, running the ball. I think the Patriots should try to run the ball, and I think it's going to be a lot of him because he's big, bruising. He breaks tackles, and he's due to have a good game. He's due to get the ball 15 to 20 times and break 100 yards. That's my thought for him. I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, but I think the Bruins are going to lose the season opener to the Capitals. It's on the road. It's in Washington. They got lucky yesterday beating them. They have typically not played well there. And I think that, Ovechkin's going for 900 goals. He's only 3 away. Would not surprise me if he scored. So that's number 4. And number 5, I didn't really have one, but I'm gonna make a prediction, and I'm gonna say that only because this is my hope, is that Alex Steves, Matej Blumel, and Matthew Poitras all make the final roster. I want them all to make it. I'm tired of seeing bums at the bottom. They need scoring. These guys have to be on the roster. I don't know how they do it or how they figure it out, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say they all make it. Now that I said that, they probably all won't. But that's what I want. So we'll see. That'll be just another one for me to get wrong next week. Anyways, that's it for the show. I don't have anything else to add. So thank you all for the support. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for voting in the polls. Thank you for the commentary. Be sure to check us out on YouTube. Go Patriots, go Bruins, and we'll see everybody next week.